our local meeting about 3 or 4 months ago. We have a local meeting once a month in Denver of our global sciences people. And the third Monday night we get together. And we usually have 60 to 80 people who attend. Half of our local members, and that's $10 a year. Incidentally, if you want to join, a lot of people do that, even though they live in Montana, and Iowa, and New Jersey, and other places, just so they find out what we're doing, or whether we've been caught at it. So they get the newsletter. They don't have much chance to attend, but we have just as many out-of-state members, or people who pay us $10 a year, which gives them the newsletter and lets them know kind of what's going on. But Connie spoke for our meeting about 3 or 4 months ago and held the audience in rapt attention, and I know she will you too. She's had experiences that only she can relate because she's been personally involved with it to a great deal. She has other people that are going to help her, and she runs her own consulting company here in Denver. Very busy lady. If you call her, you almost never get her. I think you could probably get George Bush a little quicker. But she's a busy gal. She helps these corporations in their communications work and a lot of things. And she's a real busy gal, but she's very interested in now, of course, and she'll tell you why. The work of Sai Baba and his work. And this is a man that some of you heard about. I first heard about him, heard him say that he was a man to be avoided because I heard it from a fundamental evangelist. And some of you probably can relate to that. I know some of you already told me that. But you must, all I want you to do is listen to her and make up your own mind, because there's just wonderful things that have happened in his life for many, many years and more years to come. And before we start, this has just been thrust upon me, Connie, and these flowers are to you, and they come from the heart of Sai and the Three Musketeers. You will know what that means. Maybe you'll tell us about it. Okay? Welcome, Connie Shaw.
Well, thank you, Dean, and good morning.
Good morning. Did I put that thing on? Let's see. Didn't come through. Hello. Got to get closer, maybe.
Thank you, Dean, and good morning, friends, colleagues, and fellow speakers. This morning, I'm going to be ably assisted by Ada Thetford, who has been with Connors Publishing Company for over 35 years, and also Jerry Potter, who works with Coldwell Banker Commercial, managing commercial real estate. We just got back from a trip 2.5 weeks ago to India to see Sai Baba, and I'd also at this time like to ask the Three Musketeers to raise their hands, and they are Margie Goings, Vi Flageau, and Marianne Opagina, who also went with us. We had an individual that went with us from Nebraska, another from South Dakota, and then we met 2 people there from Florida. So all in all, we had 11 people, and we'll be showing a video on Sai Baba in about 20 minutes, that last 20 minutes, and another clip on some manifestations that Sai Baba provided on this recent trip. 9 years ago, when my husband and I were living and working in Singapore, a number of things happened that changed my life. First of all, when I set foot on the soil of Asia, I felt that I could sense the presence on the planet of a perfect master, like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna. I couldn't tell whether the person was male or female, but I sensed that the individual was all-loving, that the person would exclude no one from any religion, race, creed, educational background, or caste, and that person could heal the sick. I had a hunch the person could raise the dead, and I was bound and determined that if it were the last thing I would do, I would find that person. It was extremely convenient for me to travel throughout Asia. I went to 10 countries looking for this person in between consulting contracts. Everywhere I went, I kept asking people, do you know of a person that's like Jesus or like Buddha, that's a very, very high being in a physical body? And they said, no, but if you find out, be sure and tell us. Well, I went to 11 different Buddhist lamaseries in the Himalayas asking the monks, and they kept saying, it must be the Dalai Lama that you're talking about. I said, no, it's not the Dalai Lama. I'm sure he's a very, very spiritual, holy person, probably a saint, but it's not him. I know this is someone that will probably look very different from what I expect, and I had been thinking maybe this person would have a long white beard and rather Anglo-Saxon features, and yet as I kept trying to tune in, I couldn't see a face. But I just felt tremendous love from this person. After a number of months of searching all over Asia, I became very discouraged and came to the conclusion that perhaps I was being extremely romantic. Perhaps this was a notion that was foolish and that it was weak of me to try to seek a teacher in the body. But I had been meditating for a number of years. I had investigated all sorts of teachers, Eastern and Western. I had traveled and lived throughout the world. I had a library of nearly 5,000 books, primarily on psychology, religion, spirituality, and metaphysics, and felt that somehow or other, with all of this intense, ardent work on the path, I still was not getting regular, dependable inner guidance, and that I needed someone physical that I could look at, trust, love, talk with, that could answer my questions and tell me if we were going to continue to have so many wars on this planet, if we were going to continue to have escalations of disease and famine and plague, and if we were going to continue to have terribly poor people with us forever. I just felt that there were so many things I needed to know. I needed to ask them of someone that knew all the answers and that could give me regular, dependable, ongoing, loving guidance. After 5 months, since I hadn't found the person I was looking for, and I kept crying out, God, if you are on this planet, would you please stop playing hide and seek and show yourself to me? We need you. We need you now more than ever before. I cannot believe that you would leave us comfortless. No answer. About 5 months after I had been in Asia, I began to have splitting headaches. I felt as if I were walking around day and night with a hatchet lodged in my skull, right here. There was unremitting pain. I began to have double vision. I began to feel nauseated all the time. Finally, I decided I needed to visit some top neurologists and find out what my problem was. After extensive tests, they told me that I probably needed to have exploratory brain surgery and that it was possible that I had a brain tumor. Both of my parents had brain tumors, and our family was exposed to high levels of radiation when I was a baby, and most of the people in our family ended up 40 years later with endocrine problems and all sorts of difficulties that have been very expensive to endure. Naturally, this was very discouraging. It was also my birthday, and over the years I had always had a special birthday present of a spiritual nature, and I thought, oh my, don't tell me that this birthday present means I'm going to be leaving my body soon. Well, that's just a fine note. Seems like it's a little young to be going out. I suppose that if I'm supposed to be leaving soon, I'm ready to go. But there's so many things left undone, so much forgiveness work yet to do. It seems that surely this can't be the end. Well, that night, I had spiritual apparitional visitations from Jesus and Buddha. Now, I had been talking with Jesus for years, practicing a number of disciplines, but he hadn't talked back. And I was very surprised to see him there and felt that the coming of these two must signify that on the other side they were calling the troops out to let me know to get ready to leave my body and come on over. This was disturbing. It should have been elating, but it was disturbing to me. The next day, I went to see my friend Lynn Rodrigo, who was a former member of Parliament and a very well-known attorney in Singapore, and a very, very highly thought of individual, quite a bright light, although he's extremely humble. And he asked me, why are you looking so glum? I've never seen you like this before. I said, Len, you're not going to believe this. I've just been told I probably have to have brain surgery, and I just don't know what to think, and our tour of duty here is going to be up in 3 weeks, and we're going to have to go back to the States, and I just can't think. I just don't know what to do. And I said, and furthermore, you know, this person I've been looking for all over Asia just hasn't turned up, and I just feel sort of lost, and I can't seem to quite contact my own higher self. And he said, well, I've never heard you talk like this. My goodness. Then he put his hand up on the table, and I noticed something I'd never noticed before in the months of knowing him, that he had a ring on his finger that was a very large diamond. I had thought before this last trip to India that it was a 4-carat diamond. I recently learned it's a 10-carat diamond that was materialized for him by Satya Sai Baba. And I kept looking at that ring out of the corner of my eye because it didn't really go with Len. Len was a very simple person, although quite prominent, and wore no jewelry, not even a watch. So I couldn't imagine what this very unusual, ostentatious-looking ring was doing on his finger. So he caught me looking at it and said, "I see you're looking at that diamond ring, pretty big, huh?" He said, "I just don't know why Sai Baba gave me something like this." He said, "But you know, when he materializes diamonds, it means mind, and that is to help an individual to be able to overcome their ego so that spirit can shine right through and spirit can speak through them more and more." I said, "Well, that's awfully interesting. Boy, that's a big ice skating rink you have there. That's just amazing." And I said, "But are you trying to tell me that someone made this for you?" He said, "Well, not as in the sense of creating it like a jeweler would. This person in India, who is my teacher, whose name is Satya Sai Baba, just waved his hand like that, and it came out of the air, and he presented it to me." And I said, "Len, now look, do you expect me to believe this?" And he said, "Well, it's true. I don't care whether you believe it or not, but I myself went to India a year and a half ago," he said, "to see if this individual were a fake." He said, "I had been brought up in Christianity, and I just couldn't imagine that there would be someone on earth like Jesus that I hadn't heard of." And I said, "Well, that's what I've been thinking too. You know, can you tell me a little about this person?" He said, "Well, yes, as a matter of fact, his name is Satya Sai Baba. It means Father, Mother, God of Truth." And he said he has a large afro hairstyle. He's 5 feet tall. He was born November 23rd, 1926. He's going to live to be 96 years old. He's very petite, only 5 feet tall. He wears a long, simple orange robe, and he has the 16 signs of a divine incarnation. So I said, "Well, what are those 16 signs?" He said, "Well, first of all, he has total control over all of his 5 senses. Then he has total control over earth, air, fire, water, and the ethers. Then he's all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-present. And then he is total love." So I said, "Well, you mean sort of like Jesus?" He said, "Well, yes, like Jesus became after he became self-realized." So he said, "You know, Buddha and Jesus became self-realized. Sai Baba was born self-realized." So I had to think about that a moment, and I said, "Well, wait a second. Where does Jesus fit into the picture here?" He said, "Well, Jesus and Buddha and Krishna were the spiritual focal points when they were in the body on the planet. Now, Sai Baba is a spiritual focal point in the body on the planet, and they're working on the other side. They all love each other, and they're working together." I said, "Well, that makes sense, but how come I haven't heard of him before? I consider myself to be somewhat current and literate and have read widely for 25 years on the spiritual path. Why haven't I heard of him?" He said, "The reason you haven't heard of him is because you are from the United States, number one. Your country is full of ego and materiality, and your country will be one of the last countries to know about Sai Baba, all in due time. Each person hears about him when the store of good that they have developed in this current life and in past lives reaches a certain balance that it's their moment to hear, and that is grace and blessings." So I said, "You mean like you're telling me right now about him means that somehow or other I did some good works or something in this life or before, and now it's reached the point where I get to hear about him ahead of the masses in our country, sort of?" He said, "That's right." And he said, "Some people will not hear for years and years and years, and others heard a long time ago. It all depends on when they start to awaken. This is a point in your awakening now when you can really start to accelerate." So I said, "Accelerate, awakening. Do you mean he's here to help us do something in particular?" He said, "Yes. In the West, you generally don't know that the purpose of life is to achieve self-realization, to connect with your indwelling higher spirit, to know that that is the true you, to know that that's the power within, to know that you're unlimited. The only reason Sai Baba is here is to help you know that. It's not so that you can worship him, it's that he's a way shower right back inside of you like Jesus was." I said, "Oh, I get it. Wow. Well then, are there lots of followers?" He said, "Oh, yes, from all religions. They're clergy, laity of all faiths, tens of millions of them. And furthermore, they all go to the ashrams of Sai Baba and they will read side by side simultaneously the Gita, the Quran, the Bible, New Thought, Christian Science, all sorts of things. And Sai Baba says, all paths lead to God. Everybody's on the right path. He loves everyone. Everyone's included. Nobody's excluded." I said, "Len, now look, this seems almost too good to be true. But tell me something. If people start to move around Sai Baba, do they have to become converts?" And he said, "No, of course not. He has known the past, present, and future of all 5.2 billion people on the planet. He knows and loves everyone. It doesn't matter whether they call him by the name of Lord or Allah or what. He loves everyone, and he moves in their lives even though they've never heard of him. I said, this is just too amazing for words. This is even better than I had been hoping. But you know, I have to be skeptical, because in the West we've had so many charlatans, and I've had my heart broken so many times, and I can't bear to have it broken again just by trusting in someone that might let me down. So tell me, when do they bring out the collection plate? And where do you send the tithing envelopes? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, you know, the money. He said, well, there is no money. I said, you mean they don't ever collect money? He said, well, of course not. You don't send in checks? Well, no. I said, well, do you have to wear funny clothes? And then he said, well, no. And I said, well, do you have to turn over all your worldly goods and belongings? He said, well, of course not. Where are you getting these ideas? I said, well, do you have to do funny chants and carry a rosary around and eat strange foods? And he said, no. He said, I'm telling you, there is something on the planet for every single temperament, every background, every educational class, every sort of person, every heart. And that all those paths are right for those people and all the people that they need to interact with in order to work out what they have to work out in this lifetime before they understand that the true God resides within them and that divinity resides within all living beings on the planet. So I said, all right, so you're telling me that there are not going to be any strange things that will pop out of the woodwork if I go see Sai Baba, that he already knows about me. He said, sure. So Len said, here, let me give you a picture of Sai Baba. Would you like this? I said, well, thank you very much. I took it home. That very day, ash appeared on the picture. Well, I didn't know what that was, so I thought it was dust, and I wiped it off. Well, later I found out that Sai Baba materializes something called vibhuti, or holy ash, which has curative properties. He's been doing that since he was born. When he was born, it came out of his hands. And when he was born, all the musical instruments hanging on the walls of his family home started playing spontaneously by themselves. And this was an omen that this was a divine incarnation. He started doing miracles when he was a little tiny toddler. He started feeding the hungry when he was a little tot. When he was a little boy, there was a tree in his village that became known as the wish-fulfilling tree. It's still there, and all of us on the trip saw it this time. Sai Baba would manifest simultaneously from the wish-fulfilling tree, pears, grapes, strawberries, bananas, peaches, apples, all at the same time from a tamarind tree. And he says, I am the wish-fulfilling tree. Bring me your doubts, bring me your concerns, bring me your broken hearts, bring me your questions, bring me your anger, bring me your fear, bring me your anxiety, bring me your loneliness. I am here to mend the broken hearts on the planet. I am here to be your mother and your father, your nearest friend, your dearest kin. Well, this just sounded entirely too good to be true. Len said, come to our house tomorrow and I'll show you a video on the aura of divinity. Bring your husband and you can see what you think. I saw the video and immediately my heart started beating very fast and I started crying and crying and crying. And I was so embarrassed that I was crying. I thought, it must be the tension, it must be my headaches, it must be because I think I'm going to have brain surgery. In any event, I felt I had to see Sai Baba. I decided, along with my husband Jim, to go to India. 3 weeks later, Sai Baba called us out of a crowd of 2,000 people, called us in for what is known as an interview, which is like an audience with the Pope, only a lot better. He healed me on the spot without even touching me. He also healed me on the spot without even touching me on a trip in May, which I'll tell about a little later. Since that time, when I saw him in that interview materialize a ring of Jesus as the Sacred Heart, which was a beautiful ring for a Chinese man that was there, and also a medallion for a fellow that was the head of all communication satellites in Australia, I felt there was definitely a lot more here to be looked at. So I asked Len, listen, why does he make all these things? He said he makes these rings, lockets, medallions, and so on as a connection, like a spiritual beeper, from his heart to you. And if a person has an emergency or an accident, he can materialize himself in any form by your side, just like that from across the world. I believe that's happened to me a number of times. I said, well, why doesn't he make big things, you know, like buildings or, you know, a car, and then he could just jump in it and go for a ride? And he said, because he says that would attract too much attention, and then he would become the most precious relic of India and locked up and protected, and he wouldn't have access to all the people who long to be near him from all over the world, and they are getting more and more numerous every single day. When we came home, a number of things began to happen. We began to have holy ash appear on our pictures of Sai Baba and also of Jesus, and then I began to have contact with Jesus and Mary and others, and to know what guidance means with the Ascended Masters, and to have regular ongoing communication and help. And in the past, I had thought that perhaps people that talked with Jesus were out of their minds, but now I know that he and the others have always been there. It's just that our consciousness was too dense. And the lighter and brighter we become through our spiritual work, our inner work, our forgiveness, our letting go, the more we are able to see truly all those beings that are around us to help us on our path, to know that our true power is within. There is a vast body of literature on Sai Baba. There are over 150 books in English in the United States alone, as well as books in English in the United Kingdom, in Canada, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, Australia, and New Zealand. There are also videos, audios. Publishers around the world are working night and day to keep up with the demand for the literature. There are 16,000 free service centers around the world that do service to help people in need, to feed the hungry, to help the illiterate, to teach people, to give rides to individuals, and so on. I began to wonder if my fear of death would leave, and it did in knowing Sai Baba. I had a number of other fears and phobias that have been healed, and I came to realize that when he says he's the perfect embodiment of love, that is true, that we all want love and peace and joy. He says joy is your birthright. Everyone is entitled to love and peace and joy. I am here to show you that, and show you that within yourself, that you are the embodiment of love. You are love itself, and to show you that in each other. We are going to see a video now called The Miracles of Sai Baba that someone gave me as a gift. It was produced in Texas, and it is 19 minutes long. It shows various individuals who have had experiences of materializations with Sai Baba, interviews with him. It shows a bit of the ashram, and also an overall sense of what it's like there in India with him. Afterwards, then we will see a short clip that's another video of a materialization of a ring, which Sai Baba made for me in the last interview a few weeks ago, as well as materializations of a crucifix that he made for an Episcopalian man named Dr. John Hislop, as well as two other things that he made in our interview. Then Ada Thetford will speak with us for a few moments, and Jerry Potter will speak with us about their experiences since that was their first trip to see Satya Sai Baba. We'll now have the video. Oh, I think we need the sound, please. And it wouldn't hurt to back it up a bit if that's possible. There's a title that says The Miracles of Sai Baba, then Rick Raines comes on and speaks. He's very easy to understand, has a standard American accent. And while they're doing that, I'll say that some of the things that Sai Baba has been known for absolutely have astounded Western science. The first time I ever saw Sai Baba in the ashram, it was a day that was 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and Sai Baba came walking out of the temple where he lives in two small rooms, and mind you, he doesn't sleep. He does not sleep, and he has worked 7 days a week his entire life for 65 years for others. He doesn't sleep, he eats very little, he works 7 days a week. He came walking out of the temple, raised his hand up like that, and an air-conditioned like breeze went all through the grounds, cooling us off. He waited about 5 minutes until we all became relaxed and everybody perked up in the crowd because of the coolness, and then he went like this, and the breeze stopped, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm seeing a miracle, but these people must not have noticed. They're not getting excited. Nobody was getting excited. Well, the thing was, I was the new kid on the block, and everybody else realizes that this is natural. He says, as the embodiment of God, the embodiment of love, these things that I do are natural. These things that I give you, these rings and lockets, are tinsel and trash. You don't need them, but you feel comforted with them, and I love you, so I give them to you. These things I do that are called miracles are not miracles. They are natural aspects of the outworking of the divinity within all of us. And as you become lighter and clearer, you too will do teaching and healing and raising the dead, just like the disciples did around the time of Jesus in his ministry. So he says it's just that modern science doesn't understand the phenomena that we call miracles.
Hello, my name is Rick Raines, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to an extraordinary man from southern India named Sai Baba. I recently traveled to India to see Sai Baba and to interview several people who were staying at his ashram. Today, Sai Baba is regarded by millions of people from all over the world as a holy man who has been performing Christ-like miracles for the past 50 years. His teachings focus on the spiritual transformation of each individual as the only means to lasting peace and happiness. Sai Baba explains that each person's ego and desires must be reduced in order for them to experience their own divine inner nature. He teaches the techniques of selfless service, meditation, japa, which is the constant repetition of the name of God, and devotional singing as methods to attaining self-realization. Sai Baba explains that the essential truth of life is contained in all religions, and that one need not leave their religious heritage in order to find God. Swami, as Sai Baba is commonly called, inspires his followers not only by the miracles that he performs, but by the example that he sets in his daily life.
The appeal that Swami has for me is that in this day and age, when in every country that you can mention, those who are in leadership in whatever field you can think of are providing wrong kinds of examples. There isn't every country has had disappointments in it. Political leaders and business leaders, we've seen kinds of behavior that are just not right, and we can see within our, for instance, in America, I think a lot of people see society just degenerating, becoming a very undisciplined, almost unlivable situation, at least in a lot of the cities. And to me, Swami offers a way of changing that, but it's on the individual level. I mean, I used to place some faith in political. We were involved with political party for quite a period of time, and thought maybe that seemed to be, we tended to be activists along the line. And then I got kind of disenchanted with that, seeing that it can't be done at that level. All that you do is just wasting time and energy. Whereas if you could change yourself, which is possible,
Thank you so much.
To experience the fact yourself, you're already beginning to see things in a different way than we had before, and turn from a very self-centered kind of thing to something better. And so I guess that's what it's a very, to me, it's very hopeful kind of experience. But it has to be, each individual has to do the changes. You change society by changing yourself. That's about all.
When people first hear of Sai Baba, they usually hear of the miracles that he performs on a daily basis. These miracles include materializations of rings and necklaces or a sacred ash called vibhuti. Other miracles include healing the sick and assisting people in distress all over the world. Sai Baba explains that these miracles are done simply to inspire people to begin their own personal transformations.
On the day of Mandir, Swami gave us Westerners a very wonderful, inspiring, intimate talk. And in the middle of this talk, he was declaring his true nature. He was saying how he is in fact, although he appears to us as a human being, he's not that at all. And then, quite astoundingly, he moved his hand in very large, sort of strong circles, and a diamond appeared from his hand. It was a big diamond. It was flashing and sparkling. And he said, look, and then he vanished and it was gone. It was very, very remarkable.
What he did was he materialized, there were some Mexicans with us, and he materialized a picture of a ring of Jesus Christ. Now this ring, when it came down, it was in the middle of Swami's hand, and it was spinning round very fast. after he moves his hand, it was spinning very, very fast in the middle of his hand. And then he held it like this and he showed it to everybody. Then he asked this Mexican, "Do you like it?" Then he passed it round to everybody. And everybody had a good look. "You want Jesus Christ? You want Jesus Christ?" He said, "No, Swami, I want Baba." So Swami went, "You want Baba? You sure?" And he went 3 times, he blew on it, and it became a square ring with his picture on it. And then he materialized one pendant for a lady in our group who hasn't got mental peace because of her daughter who's having marriage problems. Then he materialized Lord Shiva's pendant for an old lady. The whole family is here, Sharma family, and they're devotees of Lord Shiva. Now this Shiva picture is the exactly picture they have in the house which they worship. The colors, the exact picture is there, same, no difference. The colors, the shape, and whatever is in the picture at home is in this picture.
Has, we materialized a ring for me in an interview a year and a half or so ago. Yes, but unfortunately, after we put it on my finger, it would not come off. And you can see that his image is slowly disappearing because I tend to work with my hands a lot, and sometimes I work with cement and different things, and so it's slowly wearing his image off. Maybe he'll do something. Who knows? His hand was right here as close as mine, so I could, and I've seen him materialize Vibhuti at that distance, and you see it form, and then you notice as he does, he closes his hand. His hand is upside down, and he has to close his hand to catch the Vibhuti as it comes out of the palm of his hand. And this, there's no way that it could be any kind of a. So it's to catch our attention, but don't let it distract you from what he really wants to do.
My wife and I were attending the summer course. We arrived in Bombay on the 13th of May, and Swami was in Bombay. So we went and had his darshan in Bombay, Dharma Kshetri, and when we came back, we used to stay with a friend whom we had met for the first time. At his house at 9:30 we were sitting, the table was being set ready for dinner, and at that time my host, his friend came along and he said his sister was very ill. She had jaundice and she was 5 months pregnant, and the doctors had given up every hope. So when I heard this, I couldn't do anything because we were on our way to Swami, and I just prayed. So this friend went away and we had our dinner, and in the meantime I was talking to Swami in my mind. Swami, you are the only one who can help. What can we do? And then after a while something happened, and the inner voice said, just give them the vibhuti and ask him to take it to the hospital straight away. So at 11 o'clock at night, we went to my friend's friend and gave him this vibhuti, which had come. We ordered some books, and the vibhuti packet was in the book, so I was carrying that all the time. So I gave this packet of vibhuti to him, and I said, if it's Swami's wish, it will help you. Go and take this vibhuti to your sister, give her some in the mouth, and put a little dot on her forehead. Now these people, they live in the very east. They had never heard of Swami. They're only about a few miles away from Swami's center in Bombay. So he did this, and as the Lord would have it, the girl started gaining consciousness, and she recovered fully. Apparently afterwards, we found the doctors had a meeting, and they had given us all hope. And when we came back to Bombay after 30 days in Vrindavan, the girl was well and was home.
One thing that we experienced, which is a rather convenient miracle that happened, was in our roundhouse, a water pipe broke. And this was during the very hot season.
Roundhouse is in
The building that we were in. And this pipe broke, and all the residents in the whole housing unit were without water. It was very hot. I think average temperature was 105 degrees, 110 degrees. And when you come to Darshan, which is when you come to see Baba, you want to be fresh and clean. Well, that was literally impossible. So I remember I was in the Bhajan hall, and this is the 12th hour without water, and we used up all of our extra buckets. And I was just sitting there, and I had the thought pass through my mind, it'd be great if Baba could restore the water in our building. I just forgot about the thought, just a real quick thought. So after Bhajan, I did some odds and ends. Then I went back to the room at 11 o'clock, and my roommate was there. And he's a doctor of mathematics, a professor, and also a department head of college. So a very respected person. So I walked in the room, and he said, Andy, I really appreciate you bringing the water up. Meaning we were on the 5th floor, or the 4th floor, and all these flights of stairs. And I said, Charles, I didn't bring any water up. I'd never been in. I just got back. So there's a full bucket of water in the shower. So we went in there and looked at the bucket of water. Sure enough, it was a full bucket of water. We turned on the tap. The tap was not working still. And we tried. First we thought, well, somebody must have brought the water up. That could be the only explanation. But who would bring up a quarter of a mile where the nearest tap was operating and walk up 4 flights of stairs with a huge, heavy bucket of water? Water was shut off. People were hauling water to their rooms.
Right.
And we had a combination lock on the door. So nobody could have gotten in. And when he walked in the room, opened the lock, walked in the room, there was a full bucket of water. So we sat around and tried to think, well, how could the water have gotten here with a locked door and broken water pipe with no tap running? So we finally figured out that it was Sai Baba who had manifested the water somehow.
Indeed, we had another experience. This was when Swami, on one day, when he was giving a discourse on Bhagavad Gita, it was raining very, very heavily, and we were all sitting outside the auditorium. And it was raining on the left, and it was raining on the right, and it was coming towards us, and we were all praying. I prayed personally that Swami, you've got to stop this rain. And you won't believe. I could see Swami from where I was sitting, and Swami held his hand up like that in the air. And it was raining on the left, it was raining on the right. But where people were sitting, listening to the discourse, there was no rain. And after the discourse, when we went home, it really poured everywhere.
After a 3-week stay in Puttaparthi at the ashram, we left back to the United States. Along the way, we had an opportunity to visit an orphanage that was about 200 miles from the ashram, located near a city called Mysore. This orphanage was famous for some of the miracles that Sai Baba produces at a distance, rather than just personal from his hand. And so we wanted a chance to film them and to see what was happening at the orphanage. When I arrived, we went into the shrine room. These are very common in India, where people will do their prayers and their meditation and their ceremonies called pujas. And there are pictures usually of the guru or the master to whom they're devoted. And so there were pictures of Sai Baba all over the front wall and all around the room. And one picture in particular, the one right in the middle, was completely covered with vibhuti. Apparently it covers every Thursday and every Monday when the children of the orphanage get together and have what are called bhajan sessions, the singing sessions of devotional songs. And so I had the opportunity to go up and to put my finger out and actually feel the vibhuti, which was had formed on the outside of the picture. We were able to take some of that with us in packets. And after tasting it, the one thing that was clear was that this vibhuti had a special fragrance. It had a sweetness or a lightness to it that I didn't experience in tasting some of the vibhuti that perhaps didn't come directly from Sai Baba, but was blessed by him. It was has a very nice taste with a very nice fragrance with it as well. The thing, though, that the orphanage is most famous for are really 2 medallions that you hold in the palm of your hand. One of the medallions, they're about the size of an almond shell, curved like that. And one of the medallions has brother of Shirdi Baba, who Swami says was his previous incarnation as an avatar. You hold these two medallions in your hand, and for the last 20 years, they've been producing this very sweet liquid called amrit. It's a very, very sweet, sort of a perfume, very thin honey water. And the thing that was most striking for me about this particular miracle was it was one that I just couldn't have any doubts about. When you see the vibhuti, you ask yourself, well, could somebody have put it there? Or when you see Baba move his hand, could it be like a magician? There are always these little doubts that come up. But when I got to hold these medallions in my hand with no interference, and just watch the amrit slowly drip down my hand, and then the gentleman there, Halakapad, would take the spoon and put the amrit in my other hand as he was filling it up. It was something that I couldn't have any doubts about. I mean, it was just clear that it was happening. And one of the things that continued, I remember, as the amrit was dripping down, it was sort of a continuous, very gradual, slow dripping. So it didn't seem too unusual after a while. What seemed most unusual to me was the amrit that was building up in my left hand, where Halakapad was scraping off the amrit with the spoon and pouring it into my left hand. And so there was just a steady little dripping and then filling up in this hand. And it was really nice to see, and it was wonderful to taste, and we were able to bring some of it home with us when we came back. But we were told that the little dish there fills up, the little cup fills up about in a 4-hour time span. And these medallions have been producing this amrit for 20 years. So it's a very impressive thing to see.
In the first place, I mean, Swami has that ability to appeal to people of all different persuasions and personalities and characteristics, and in our case we tend to be maybe from our Mormon heritage a little more pragmatic and practical about things. We weren't interested in any of the, any strange phenomena of any sort. That didn't attract us. I think sometimes people, when they hear about Swami's materializations or some other things, they become interested. That didn't particularly, I mean, I could take it or leave it, but I think the thing that maybe kept us going was the fact that we could see in our own lives that we were better able to deal with something was happening on a subtle level. It made it possible for us to deal with the problems that we had in our work and in our family. And it offered a little island of peace and sanity, which got to be a little bigger and bigger as time went on. So,
well, there are a lot of things that have happened, but I think Sai Baba, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, is famous for his miracles. But I think more importantly is the inner transformation that he causes in people.
Sai Baba has said that the miracles that he performs are simply calling cards designed to inspire each individual to begin their own program of spiritual transformation. I hope that you've enjoyed this program on Satya Sai Baba.
That's fine. Now we'll put in the other clip of the materializations that Sai Baba made on this recent trip. So that's ready to go, I think. It's queued up, and all you have to do is just pop it in and push play. This will just take a very brief time, perhaps a minute or a minute and a half. And we can turn the sound off on this because there's just talking in the background, so you can have it silent, and I'll speak to accompany it.
Try that mic with the cord. This one seems to be, no, this one here.
Can you hear me if I talk like this from this mic? No. How about this? Can you hear me? Oh, thank you. All right. I will accompany this silent clip, and we'll have the lights off again. Thanks, Dean. This is the ring that Sai Baba materialized for me on this trip. It has it has this ring was just materialized a couple of weeks ago. It has a dome of precious stones on the top that symbolize protection and amelioration from the influences of the 9 planets. Also, it's surrounded by diamonds on the bottom base. It's silver colored, but it's made of 5 metals called, in combination, panachola, and is a very special metal from which sacred objects are made for special occasions. On each side is the Om symbol, which means God in Sanskrit. This object on the left is a green-colored egg, which is called a Shiva Lingam. That symbolizes the potential within the egg of creation, and that is often given as an auspicious gift to people, and especially to healers. It's kept in a cup or a bowl of water, and sick people can drink the water and be healed immediately. The statue on the right is a little gold statue of Shirdi Sai Baba, Sai Baba's most recent incarnation. Shirdi Sai Baba lived from 1838 until 1915. There was an 8-year gap, and then there will be another 8-year gap after this Sai Baba leaves his body, and he'll come back as Prema Sai Baba, or Father, Mother, God of Love, his 3rd incarnation to bring in the golden age of 1,000 years of peace. This is a crucifix. It's actually quite small. It's enlarged considerably. It's about 1.5 inches or 2 inches high, and was materialized for Dr. John Hislop, who has had 22 years of contact with Sai Baba and is the president of the Satya Sai Baba Organization of North America. And that's all we have on that clip. So thank you very much, and now we'll have the lights. I'd like to ask you to hold your applause in the interest of time so that we can, as Dean says, pack it full, give them everything you can in the time allotted. So now we'll hear from Ada Thetford, who's going to talk for 2 minutes about her experiences on our recent trip to India to see Sai Baba.
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me back there? Can you hear me now? Thank you. I want to welcome all and good morning to you. And I want to encourage and ask you to share my experience with Sai Baba. Rather than to talk about the trip to India, I felt that it would be in your best interest for me to tell you about my first conversations with Sai Baba. Obviously, I was introduced to Sai Baba by Connie. The 2 things that really caught me was that you don't have to give up anything to have him interact in your life. The other thing was Connie's deep devotion to Sai Baba. So one morning, as I was going to work in November, I just by reflex almost started talking to Sai Baba. And I said, Sai Baba, Connie Shaw tells me a lot about you. I'd like to know you better. I'd like to have you interact in my life. And so I said, I guess in order to know you, I have to serve you some way. And so I said, how can I serve you? I drove to the office, and about 15 minutes later, I went in my office, took off my coat, sat down, and the phone rang. And it was Connie. And she said, Ada, would you be secretary to our Sai Center? Well, I wasn't used to that kind of response. So immediately, I had a 3-way conversation going. 1 with Connie and 2 within myself, my conscience and my humanness. And my humanness was saying, I don't want to do this. And my conscience was saying, well, you made a promise, you made a commitment. And I said, I know that, but this is too fast. I'm a senior citizen. I can't act this fast. And they said, you're just squelching, my conscience said. Why don't you just get off of the dime, honor your commitment, and go with it? So I don't know what I was saying to Connie in my conversation with her during this time, but I do remember I said to her, well, I'll take it on a trial basis. So I sort of salved my conscience. I didn't commit myself real heavy, but I also had left the door open for Sai Baba to interact with me. But I've come to find out things that I take on trial basis in my life have a way of becoming permanent. And things that I commit myself to are very short-lived. So I have been involved with Sai Baba since then. When you interact with him, you find yourself having conversations with him. So in January, I want to share another story with you that I was a part of. In January, I was telling a co-worker of mine about the experiences that I had had with Sai Baba. Now this co-worker is very direct. She cuts away the fat, gets right to the meat in a hurry. So she was out for a walk in January one evening. Well, she came into my office one morning and she said, "Ada, is it time for butterflies?" And I said, "Why?" She said, "Don't bother why, just tell me, is it time for butterflies?" I said, "No, it's a little early for butterflies. Now that I've answered, can you tell me why?" She said, "Yes." She said, "Last night I went for a walk." And I said, "Sai Baba," she says, "this stuff Ada tells me about you true? If it is, prove it to me." And that's just the way she is. And she says, "Prove it to me by showing me, show me a butterfly." She says, "I hadn't walked 30 feet, and here on a dead leaf that was still clinging to a limb sat the most beautiful butterfly." I said, "An accident, right?" She said, we kind of laughed about it. So those are two things that I have been personally involved with, many, many more that that I could be happy to share if I had more time. But I think these little accidents are very commonplace once you start talking with Sai Baba. And once you start talking with him, you feel compelled to tell other people about him. So I offer the invitation to any of you who choose to accept it. If you would like to start interacting with Sai Baba, you can do so without giving up any of your current beliefs. You don't even have to tell anybody you're doing it. You can add a new dimension to your life. But I would leave you with this warning. Once you start doing this, you better prepare yourself to have the most beautiful love experience that you have ever witnessed. So I say good day and thank you so much.
And now we hear from Jerry Potter, which was Cocoa Banker commercial. Thank you, Connie. Can everybody hear me okay? Just really belt it out. Okay. All right, I'll try to speak a little bit louder for you today. It would be easier to talk about Sai Baba for 2 hours than just 2 minutes, so I'll try to contain my remarks to just a couple minutes here, since we have a time constraint. Basically, I met Baba in form about a month ago, but I've been getting guidance from him for the past year or so since I first heard about him. Going to India was a wonderful experience for me, and I soon learned that we don't have to go to India to meet him and to have him in our lives. I'm a real expert at that because it took me a long time before I got him in my life. I had many addictions and suffered through a lot of guilt and fear and anger before I sought help through a 12-step program. When I finally got into a 12-step program, I experienced a spiritual awakening that brought me to other programs and ultimately to Connie and of course Sai Baba. About a year ago when I first met him actually, my life began to change in many ways. It was quite amazing to me. Going to India proved to be most auspicious for all of us who went. And I experienced many beautiful things. I saw him materialize many objects, including the ring for Connie. And coming from a very conventional religious background, it was very hard to me to realize what I was experiencing. I believed it, but I didn't think anyone else would believe me when I told them about it. So I didn't think I'd be talking about it. And here I am today telling all of you and anybody else who will listen about Sai Baba. Today, I truly believe in him. I don't care if other people believe me or not, but he is in my life, and I believe that he's truly the avatar of our times. Thank you. Thank you, Ada and Jerry. After I took my first trip to India, I found that people would be constantly calling me thenceforth to ask about the experience and to find out in great detail what I did there, what it was like in the ashram, what Sai Baba was like, and so on. And it was amazing, the stream of people that kept coming to me. So I found myself, for the past 9 years, standing in the ladies' room of restaurants and hotels and in the aisle of airplanes and in offices and all sorts of places, hastily scribbling out addresses and information about him on the backs of napkins and envelopes. And finally this year I thought, my goodness, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I finally decided that since I had had so many requests, and the requests seem to be continuing to increase all the time, and I'm getting phone calls from all over the United States every week, from people that I've never heard of before, asking me to please tell about your experiences that I heard about from my cousin who had a neighbor who had a friend, and please tell me in person. So finally, I put this book together. It's called Sai Baba in Brief, and Bob wanted me to make sure to say that it's available in the bookstore in the back. And also, there have been 42 major phenomena in Denver in the past year regarding Sai Baba, where he has appeared in people's homes that have never heard of him before. Sacred ash and amrit, which is this spiritual nectar, has appeared on people's pictures and on their dining tables and various places around their homes. And there has been so much taking place that I could hardly keep up with it. My phone has been ringing morning, noon, and night. So I finally decided to put the experiences on tape and have a series of tapes called Life with Sai Baba, volumes 1 to 4. Bob has those as well. Each tape has about 15 experiences on it, and you will probably notice the names of some of the people that are here in the room today and other people that you know from the Denver area. Also, I asked Sai Baba a couple of years ago in meditation what I could do to serve more, in addition to teaching people to read, write, speak, and spell English and collecting food for the homeless and a couple of other things. And the answer was, put my discourses on tape because you have a standard American accent, which people can understand. And they will be able to hear my discourses and understand what I'm trying to teach people. So I did that, and there's a series called Sai Wisdom Tapes, volumes 1 to 3, also back there, which really contain his primary messages. Very, very simple, easy to understand. How are we doing on time? We have 7 minutes left, all right? I would say that Sai Baba has helped me with a great deal of guidance in my life, as well as with warnings. On 3 different occasions, I have been in a situation where I was in a car about to have a head-on collision, and I just screamed out, "Baba, help!" And in each case, all the cars came to a stop. Twice, it was on an icy bridge, and I was facing a stream of oncoming traffic, and all the traffic stopped very quickly. My car did a complete spin and then stopped facing the right direction. None of us crashed. That happened twice. And then another time, I was driving along a very rocky, narrow road in India and came around the curve very quickly in the cab where I was the passenger, and a truck and a bus were traveling side by side. There was no place to go. So I screamed out, "Baba, help us!" And the cab driver yanked the steering wheel. We went over toward the cliff and stopped just as we were hovering on the cliff, and the truck and the bus stopped side by side, and we were all just inches from each other. He has also helped me innumerable times with flat tires, when I have had, I would say, probably about 8 flat tire experiences. And each time, I've jumped out of the car and said, "Pardon me." Well, now, Swami means teacher. Guru means teacher. Swami, you know I can change a tire. I know I can change a tire. But I'm dressed up, and I'd rather not get black gunk all over my hands and have to get down and do all that. I could probably change it in 5 or 10 minutes, but I'm just feeling like I'd rather not do it. So would you please send somebody? And in a heartbeat, before I even finish my sentence, there's always someone there that drives up and says, "Hey there, little lady, looks like you need some help. We'll just get that tire fixed in 5 minutes." And they just open the trunk, and I just say, "Well, where did they come from? I didn't see them in the rearview mirror." It's been wonderful. So he's very, very practical. If you have scientific questions or problems, research things you're working on, ask him for help. If you're a student, you have exams, ask him for help. If you have questions about the universe, ask him. If you need some contacts, some networking resources, ask him for help. That's what he's there for. And he says, "I have come to give you whatever you want. I am the gift store. I am the wish-fulfilling tree. I am your mother. I will give you whatever you want until you finally come to want what I have come to give you," which is self-realization and to know the divine within you. Just talk to him naturally. He knows what we're like anyway, so there's no reason to try to be more pious or pretentious or to even fold your hands in prayer. He sees us all day long. He knows your every conversation. He knows your past, present, and future. He knows everything you've ever thought or said or done, and he loves you anyway. Now, do we know anybody else that loves us that much, knowing everything about us? He helps us forgive ourselves. He's helped me to work on healing my relationships, to let go of grudges and grievances, and he's helped me with the process that I do. And that process is this. When I see that I'm feeling separate from another person, or I'm feeling judgmental about them, I'm still working on that like everybody here, I suppose. I say to myself, if someone is seeming to yell at me or insult me or do something that seems like an attack, I say, part 1, this is not an attack, it's a call for love. Part 2, since I'm seeing it, it's my issue. How is it my call for love? Part 3, Baba, please help me see how this is my issue. Let me see how this person is serving me by being a mirror for something I'm not willing to look at in myself. Help me see it. Now he helps me see it in 60 seconds. I see it and say, oh my gosh, That again. Thank you very much. Please take it. I don't want it. I don't want to hold on to any grudges. I don't want to hold on to any grievances. I want to be light and bright. I want to be happy and joyful. And this is separating me from my brother. Please take it. Then he takes it away. I feel lighter and happier, and usually I burst out laughing. If I either laugh or cry as a release, I know it's been healed. And then I mentally thank the person for doing me the service of being a mirror for me. And I find that people serve me all day long by being mirrors. Mirrors for joy and love and peace and happiness, as well as for things that I haven't been able to see because I haven't wanted to look at. So that's another thing he can help with as well. He's helped me in warnings. One night he came and stood beside my bed at 2 in the morning and said, "You have got to stop eating chicken. There are hormones in the chicken that are causing cysts in your body. They are hurting you. You have got to start eating better." Just like a mother. Wonderful. And you have to start drinking clean, pure water, and you have to start exercising and eating better food. So I said, "Oh, well, all right, fine, thank you very much." He says, "I come as a mother most often to Americans because Americans have been very poorly parented. Poorly parented. They don't know what it is to be the tender, cherished child of a loving mother. So they most often see me as the Divine Mother. But it doesn't matter. I appear the way people need for me to appear so they can accept and love and trust me and accept and love and trust themselves." There are sacred fragrances that he sends. If you ever smell around you incense, sandalwood, jasmine, roses, or lilies of the valley, and no one around you is wearing perfume or hairspray or anything that would create a fragrance. It could be in the middle of the wintertime and you smell flowers. In the most unlikely times and places, that is just Sai Baba saying, "I love you, I'm with you, I know you, I'm surrounding you, I'm helping you, I'm right here with you, right here all the time, and this is just a little message from me." In regard to our recent interviews, Sai Baba said that in regard to questions from people, that war in Libya is going to continue to expand because the people's hearts were contracting, and that wherever there is contraction, there will be an expansion of war. So he said, you must expand, expand, expand your hearts, and that is what will create peace. We create peace on the earth by creating peace in ourselves. That's the way it works. It doesn't work by getting bodies and egos together, because that is just merely forms gathering together without a change in consciousness. So the way we transform ourselves is by transforming our hearts, doing the inner work, and learning to see love in all beings. So I would just say in conclusion that I hope that in the next year that we all have the courage to be vigilant of our thoughts, to be willing not to separate ourselves one between another, to have the courage to do whatever it takes to keep expanding and expanding our hearts until we meet once again next year here together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie. You may want to stand up now and face that way and massage.